Let's talk about it though. All right. So a lot of good things happened last night. Hell, I just came off a Jack show and gave Jimmy a game ball, believe it or not. You can go see it. It's recorded. I promise you it happened. But Jimmy Garoppolo, it's funny because there's so much contention around the quarterback position when it comes to the 49ers. You're a Trey guy, you're a Jimmy guy, it's whatever. But right now, we've seen the worst of Jimmy last week, and then we saw Jimmy at arguably his best last night, right? And we've seen it all in a 7-day or 8-day time span. So, was there anything that we learned about Jimmy last night, in your opinion?
So I think that I don't think we learned anything new. Let's just put it that way. I think that the reality was Kyle Shanahan. This is the game that Kyle Shanahan needs to call for Jimmy on a consistent basis. That's what I think we learned is the sweet spot that Jimmy needs to be successful for this team. And it's the quick passes. It's the, not too many difficult quote unquote throws that could, turn into interceptions, even though Jimmy did try that a few times, throw an interception. I think that he should have had a second touchdown. I put that on Kittle for not knowing where he was in the end zone, and he should have been able to get that second foot down. That would have been a second touchdown for Jimmy, which I thought was a decent throw from him. But this is Kyle Shanahan played into Jimmy's strengths. He's extremely quick at getting the ball out of his hands. He's pretty accurate at the short throws, and they maximized when they needed to maximize as far as being able to put points on the board with this offense. So I think that this is the sweet spot. It looks great because it came from a win, but the reality was this is just a very good, just a decent game. He didn't do anything spectacular. He just played good, and a good quarterback with this defense can go very, very far. And so that's what I learned is just this is the sweet spot that we need to have Jimmy play in.
Yeah, and I disagree with this comment here. It may not have been his best game, right? I mean, some of those games against the Cardinals were really good. I think the Saints game is a little bit overblown, personally. There was a lot that happened around that for them to go win that game. The Kittle play was amazing. Emmanuel Sanders threw a touchdown, if I remember correctly. But those games against the Cardinals were probably his best games, like from a statistical standpoint. But when I say his best or near his best, him just getting the ball out quickly, avoiding a couple sacks, which I think is overlooked because he did do a good job of that yesterday. He avoided a couple. One was instant from Donald. That's the only.
That was
I didn't even know Donald was in that game other than that play.
Right.
But he got in, got out, got rid of that ball. So avoided sacks, got the ball out quick, didn't turn the ball over. That to me is Jimmy at his best. Certainly there is a game or two that you can look at over the 5 years with San Francisco where it's like, oh man, Jimmy was really dialed in. But Jimmy's a net zero quarterback. I stand by that. He's not going to be the reason you win, and he's not going to be the reason you lose most of the time. Now, I can point to a couple games that the 49ers lost because of Jimmy last week. I can point to a couple games, to be fair, though, that the 49ers won because of Jimmy. But for the most part, if he's that net zero guy, but more importantly, that net zero guy without throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, man, that's all that we need. That's all the Niners need with this defense. So to me, I actually think that was Jimmy near his best. I do. And I don't need any more from Jimmy. I don't expect any more from Jimmy.
Right.
I know who he is. My expectations are set on who he is. They stretched the defense out horizontally. Did a fantastic job of it. That was one of my keys to the game last week. That's what I wanted to see them do, because Jimmy, I don't think he's a guy who's ever going to stretch the field vertically. Not saying he can't do it a time or two, but for the most part, he's not going to be that guy. But what he can do is be very accurate. He's got that quick release. And if you dial up those plays around the line of scrimmage outside the numbers, he's going to deliver it on time. allow those guys to go get the extra yards. And that's something that they can do on a regular basis. And they can use it as an extension to their run game if they aren't running the ball very well. So to me, that is Jimmy at his near best last night. And I am totally fine if that's who he is, game in and game out. If that's who he is, and we can get that from Jimmy on a regular basis, sky's the limit for this team. I really believe that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned two critical things that Jimmy can actually become a net positive through. And one of those is being able to avoid the sacks when he can, right? And the other one was, he held onto the ball. There was no turnovers, right? So those are two things where I think where you say it's near his best. If he's doing those two things, that is a net positive, I think, overall, especially with the way this team wins. And one thing that Jimmy did well this game is if the running game is going to be inconsistent, right? They average 4.1 yards per carry. The fact that Jimmy was still able to manufacture yards, or Kyle Shanahan, whoever you want to put the credit for, right? Kyle Shanahan with his play calling or whatever, spinning it horizontally, like you said, getting the wide receivers, those wide receiver screens where they could get 4 to 6 yards on a first or second down. That's still running play yards, getting into third and manageable type situations. They went from 1 in 10 last game in third down to 5 out of 12. So definitely a big difference. And I just really loved the execution from this game was so much better than the week previous.
Absolutely. And Steve-O says Jimmy had a few dimes. Yes, those two throws to Kittle were very, very good. But he also had some throws that were easy throws that he passed up that would have gone for big yardage. That's just who Jimmy is. Like, we have to be, I think Diego said it, Jimmy's MVP. If your expectation is that, then you're going to be let down. And then you're also going to, when he doesn't play at the level that you're expecting, you're going to have a lot of people hunting you down and be like, where's that MVP? Where are you at? It's just, don't expect that. And Avatar, listen, if that's all he has, then play to his strengths. Like, right. The strengths are get the ball out quick, get it on the perimeter, let those guys go out and do their thing, which all these guys can get major yak. We've seen it year after year after year. Just play to that. That's fine. Like, if that's what you have, then build a game plan around it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. So to me, just don't turn the ball over. So no, the answer, long story short, the answer is no. We didn't learn anything new about Jimmy. I know you go look at the throws he made, you go look at where they were at on the field. It was nothing different than what we've seen from Jimmy. He has had games in the past where he hasn't turned the ball over. I just want to see that consistently. If we can go 3-4 weeks in a row without a turnover, that would be seeing something that I haven't seen from Jimmy. And then I would start to think, okay, maybe we got something here, right? We've gone 3-4 games in a row without a turnover, without that boneheaded throw directly to a DB. Okay, maybe we're off and cooking here. So this is the building blocks. This is where it starts. And, listen, yes, he dropped one, but that goes both ways. Debo made a hell of a catch and then dropped it off for 50 plus. So anyways, enough about Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm excited for him, excited for this team, and excited to see what this team can do if, in fact, Jimmy continues to play this way. Okay,